Okay, I think we'll kick it off. Welcome everyone to this session, which is called New Pathways to Tech Jobs Paying Family Supporting Wages. I'm Ann Ladke. I'm a senior advisor with the Corporate Coalition, and I want to welcome everyone and thank our presenters. They are Kara Pan, who's the Chicago Market Executive at Bank of America, and Juan Salgado, who is the Chancellor of the City Colleges of Chicago. And we are delighted both of you were willing to come and spend this time with us this morning. The way this is going to work is that we will hear from our presenters as I kind of prompt them along. There's lots for them to tell you about. And then we'll open the floor for questions about 20 or so minutes in. And you're welcome to participate either in the chat or by raising your hand and unmuting. And I would just encourage everyone to keep your video on if you can, and to please stay on mute unless you're speaking. So with that, looks like we still have some people joining us, but we will just perhaps stop a few minutes in and reintroduce. But for now, I think we should begin. So I'm going to just set my timer here so I know what time we're doing. So we have plenty of time for questions. Okay. So Kara, if you could start us off, just to set the stage, if you could tell us just a little bit, introductory description of the program. And then in the course of that, if you could tell us what problem you were hoping to solve, what challenge you were trying to meet. So if you could begin.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Thank you everybody for joining. So I have been asked to present this today, and I asked Chancellor Salgado, for those of you that do not know him, he's the brilliant man behind City Colleges here in Chicago, to join me, because this isn't really just a Bank of America program. This is what we think of as a Chicago employer program that is working very closely with City Colleges. So Chancellor Salgado might jump in and correct me here or there, know that we're working on this together. So the program, we call it the Bank of America Signature Jobs Initiative. And what it is it's a 4-year initiative where we're partnering with Aspen Institute and City Colleges of Chicago to set students up to get livable wage jobs upon graduation. So there are other programs that are set to bridge students to 4-year degrees, or to align them to things like internships, apprenticeships, but this is focused on connecting those students to getting livable wage careers out of their certificate or their program. So we feel like that's the differentiator there. A lot of companies that we talk to, they're thinking about improving, how can we help them improve like college graduation rates or career success for minority students. But we think of this initiative slightly differently, because we're hoping to achieve those things, but we're doing it by actually partnering with employers first. We're not focusing on the schools first. So in theory, what we're asking is for employers, Bank of America as being one of them, to think about what jobs do we have today, not creating new jobs, but what jobs do we have today that we always need to hire in for? And when we look at those jobs, do those jobs need to be 4-year mandatory requirement, or do those jobs need to have just other specific certifications or technical skills? So we've done quite a bit of work within our own house, reconsidering how we need to hire. City Colleges worked with a lot of other employers that hire into the tech space. And we found sort of this pivotal point where employers are talking about hiring into specific roles, and City Colleges is looking at building out those same programs. So we've spent about 1.5 years on this initiative so far, and City Colleges has built out 5 programs that employers have been asking for. 2 are on software development, 2 are on cybersecurity, and 1 is on digital marketing. And I think part of that is social media as well. So these 5 programs, they're building out capacity for their students. And what we're looking at is trying to get companies to come to the table. You know, originally we were talking about getting companies to the table to commit to hiring these students out of the gate, maybe, you know, hire 10 a year or something along those lines. And one of the things we learned is that it's so hard for corporations to forecast hiring or to predict, to share that information. So we've changed it a little bit, and we're not asking companies to come and commit to the hiring. We're asking companies just to come to the table to address, are these the type of students that we could have? And if we could, what could we do with our own job recs to make them available? So for example, we have over 300 openings today in Chicago at Bank of America. And I had our HR team go back and look at how many have we already removed 4-year degrees. And there were 6 different roles within those 300 jobs. So many of the jobs, but 6 different types of roles that we've already removed 4-year degree from the mandatory requirement. And of those, I think there were 25, they said, that were open right now today that would fit those students. So that's a bit about the program. Chancellor Salgado, do you want to add anything as I outlined it?
Well, I would just say that for us at City Colleges, it was just a tremendous opportunity to, look at how can we be responsive to this new opportunity, to look at not just getting students on the pathway to livable wage jobs and on the pathway to upward mobility, but to actually make them upwardly mobile with a livable wage job the minute they left our door, right? And that happens in some cases. This was about how do you make it happen in all cases by building the right architecture and the right kind of programs that's actually, responsive to the employers and adds value to our students. And so it's got us thinking differently too. It's got us doing some things differently as a result of that as well. And so I think that's important because, adaptation and evolution of our institutions to meet the needs of industry and community is a big, bonus that comes from this kind of effort, right? And of course, it gives us the opportunity to, re-examine our curriculum, relook at what we're doing, and outreach to our students as well.
Great. Can I ask Kara, if you could talk a little bit about some of the things that were challenging in tackling this? I mean, you mentioned that you had to rethink job requirements, and can you talk a little bit about that and maybe other challenges and, the magnitude of that?
Yeah, and I love how you worded that, Anne, because you put it in the past. But we talk about this all the time, that this is really hard work. And so it's been hard, it's gonna be hard. I think Chancellor Salgado says it perfectly. If this wasn't hard, we weren't doing it right. I see Matt from P33 is here. We've spent a ton of time with Brad Henderson from P33 as well, because one of the hardest pieces of what we've been talking about is we came out and announced this program, right? And everybody was excited. It was dollars going to a community college from a large corporate, and there was media around it. But the real meat behind this program was to make sure that we were connecting students to livable wage jobs. And our CEO was very clear from the beginning, this is not about Bank of America. It's actually called the Signature Jobs Initiative. It's not called Bank of America's initiative for that reason. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get companies to the table to hire these students. And so one of the hardest things has been getting companies to the table to not just talk about diverse hiring, but really lay out in their plan how they could connect the dots for the diverse hiring. And so that I would say has been one of the more challenging parts about it. It's, quite honestly, City Colleges is phenomenal to work with. So that piece has been easy. They've been great on, getting feedback from Aspen Institute and building out the programs. But all of it is just in theory, unless we get corporates to the table to say, yes, these students are very qualified. These students have the background they need. And whether it's a 4-year or 2-year degree has nothing to do with their success in this role. And this is a role we hire for every day.
So Juan, perhaps you could just give us a sense of what is the Aspen Institute's role in this? What were they helping you do?
Well, they're strategic advisors on a day-to-day basis to make sure that the plans that we have actually come to fruition, and the roadblocks that we may face, and we face some roadblocks without question, we're able to overcome them. And so when you have a strategic advisor like that, it's really I think it gives comfort to the Bank of America, to know that there's somebody coaching us, quite frankly, and that's helpful. It's helpful to have somebody from the outside, give you perspective, and that's what we've gotten. There have been moments where we've gotten very critical feedback, I would say, that's come all the way to my level about what the college can and should do better, and the college has responded to that critical feedback. And so I think that part of it has been, wonderful. Because you don't always get that from the companies, and especially when you're trying to engage them, it's newer in the process. And as Kara's pointing out, we can use a lot more employer engagement, directly looking at the talent that we have coming out. But I want to talk about one other challenge, which is it's not a given that young people are going to jump into IT occupations, and particularly Black and brown young people, because there's not enough people like them in the industry right now that they can look to, that they can really visualize and say, oh, this is for me, right? If you look at the IT industry now, there's no wonder why many students might say it's not for them, right? Because it's not very diverse. And so we've got an extra lift here too, to get out and talk to students and motivate students and bring students into these pipelines. And so that's an additional challenge, although, we do have some students going through the very programs we're talking about right now, and some that will be ready very soon. So, it's a wonderful opportunity point to tap into that talent.
So Juan, are the students coming through your normal recruitment channels, the outreach that you're doing, or doing any special outreach about these programs?
Yeah, well, we are, if you will, we've actually built out some unique programming. I mean, the cybersecurity programming. We have special outreach that goes into that, and in the software development side, I want to say we built something out that is unique. Working with a private for-profit company that is helping to do the training in a shorter time frame, that will get someone with almost no computer software development expertise, I should say, to being a full stack developer within a period of 6 to 7 months. Okay, so that's not something we were able to do. We found someone that could do it. We were able to work through our bureaucracy to create a partnership agreement to make that happen. And in about a few days, a couple weeks, roughly 20 students are going to start this program. Within about 6 or 7 months, you're going to have full stack developers out there in the marketplace. And so we've been able to go to students and say, hey, here's something different, right? And something unique. And it looks a lot different than our associate's degree or even our boot camp. So we're creating different kinds of products. And to the question, the third party training provider is Catalyte. But it's also given us an opportunity to look at how do we do these kinds of things, not just with Catalyte, but potentially in the future with others.
Great. So let's go back to this collaboration. Kara, can you say from your point of view, how do you manage this? Because you're doing a lot of internal things, right, with your job requirements and all that. And so you're making changes at the same time you're trying to collaborate with an educational institution to meet the requirements. So can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so it helps when your company agrees to hire Aspen Institute to help. I would not recommend anyone on this call try to recreate the program that we're trying to create right now. I don't think it requires multiple programs like this. What I would actually recommend is that if you have any interest in this type of work, to come to the table with Juan and I and think through how it could fit for your school or for your company. For us managing it, obviously we have weekly calls. We have 1 hour weekly call with the Aspen Institute and the college. But then on top of it, my team has been working on our corporate client connections on who may be interested in having these types of dialogues in addition to their banking dialogue that they're having with us. And then another avenue is, as I had mentioned, we've been talking with P33 extensively because they're having these conversations across the city with companies. And quite often, corporates are sharing things with, a nonprofit partner like P33 that they wouldn't share with us. Mm-hmm. So they're sharing with them where they might have hiring needs. And, I can say this till I'm blue in the face, but I think it's really hard for other companies to really take it at face value that this is not about Bank of America. We're not, so we really want to know what your hiring needs are so that we can shift to help the school and the students, not to, we're competing on talent.
So what do you think companies would need to do in order to get ready to engage in a program like this? I mean, when you say come to the table, what should they come to the table with?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I think it's really two things. And Juan, I'd love your impression on this too. First, having a sense internally if there's a comfort level of hiring this type of talent into these types of roles. Because we're again, this all goes back about connecting students to livable wage jobs. So we're not just talking about creating new roles or hiring them into any role. We're talking about connecting them so that they do not have to have 2 or 3 jobs when they come out of school. They can have one and they can support their family. And so I think, you first have to have probably some internal discussions within your own company, making sure that everybody's on the same page, that this is the direction you're going to go. Because we have found that many companies come to the table and talk with us, but then they really don't have a good consensus across the board of decision makers that are pushing to hire from the school. So I think the first thing is you really have to have a comfort level that this is the hiring you want to do. And then I think it's, coming to the table with an open mind, because the curriculums and the programs that the school is putting together, they are phenomenal. I mean, Catalyte, I can see, is on the call too, and they've helped with some of this. They're really, really incredible programs, but a lot of these programs can get incredibly specific. And so you want to make sure that, we're thinking about, does it fit? Does it, is it the right need for the roles that you guys have? Even if you're open to hiring, are these, really plug and play for your company?
Great.
Juan, was there anything you would add to that?
I do think it's important to, we can go through just maybe not for this particular initiative only, but overall, what have been those company experiences that get the most value, if you will, from our system, right? And I would say, talk to some of those places about how you get the most value from our system. And I think when we examine that, alignment within the company is really important, okay? You want to make sure that from the CEO to the HR to the person leading the teams on the ground floor, there is, really strong alignment as to what value we are trying to gain, from this engagement. And so, places like SDI Presence that have really dug into our work at Kennedy King College, and places like Accenture that have really dug into our apprenticeship work, right? And so, and now with Bank of America working with us, this is the level of engagement I think needs to be, strong and aligned if you're really going to get, the return that you're looking to get. We have a few other companies that we think are promising in terms of that deeper engagement. I know it's not for everybody, but I think that particularly for the larger companies, if you want to get the most out of it, you got to be willing to, step in and provide some of your human capital to meet us halfway towards getting the right talent.
And I'd like to know, just from both of you, sort of what do you see as the sort of scale of this, or the scope of this, that you're focusing on jobs that you feel? I know we always have had issues with this. Juan and I have talked about this a million times. It's very difficult for companies to forecast. But can you talk a little bit about sort of how what your expectations are? You've got 5 programs, so you see some across industry growth potentially here, I presume. Could you talk a little bit about how you came to that?
You want me to share, Kara?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say, I think, I think what we're doing is building out, programs that are going to meet the market demand, right? And I understand not being able to forecast and make sort of firmer commitments, but I think that what an employer can find when they engage is that they will get a steady stream of talent when they need it from this particular source. Okay, if you have that engagement, then you will be better positioned to get the kind of talent that you need, because we'll have direct handoffs, to the occupation specifically, that you're looking to fill. And so we're doing a little bit of this work, I said already, but we can certainly do more of it in the future.
So go ahead, Kara, sorry.
Well, and I was just going to quickly add to that. It is hard to forecast, and oftentimes I think large companies don't share their forecasts, and we don't either. So we're not asking anybody to do that. But even without sharing it, there are roles at every company that are always open. Any large company has specific roles. So for example, here in Chicago, we have a software development role that we're constantly hiring for that. We also have relationship bankers, which don't have to go through these programs, but if they go through these programs, they're seriously qualified for a relationship banker. So we have these 2 roles. There are others, but we know those roles we're always hiring for. And so we're not trying to say, XYZ company, come to the table and create new jobs that fit this program. We're saying, what roles are you always hiring for already? And could this talent be talent that could meet up there?
Got it. So Kara, just to go back to your, as we get closer to opening this up to more questions, although people have been great putting them in the chat so far, could you talk about, how you think, I don't know what your outreach has been to companies, but it sounds like keeping this going requires more companies to come to the table. And can you say what sort of avenues you've used, and are there ways that you would like to expand that effort?
Yeah, so, Chicago, I think probably everyone that's on this call or part of Corporate Coalition will understand Chicago is made up of a whole lot of groups trying to do really good things, right? We've got the Civic Committee, we've got the Executive Club, we've got Corporate Coalition, we've got P33, we've got We Rise Together. And so we've tried a lot of those avenues where we've shared what we're doing. We've also tried one-on-one connections with either our corporate banking clients or through the college's clients that typically are employer partners of theirs. But I think what we're realizing after being in this about 18 months is it's going to take companies to come to the table that are as interested as we are. Because I think we don't want to push our agenda on them. And quite frankly, over the last 18 months, almost every company has come up with their own agenda, how they're going to focus on whether it's ESG or racial equity or, all these different items. And so I think what we would like to see is sort of like a meeting of the minds of some of the companies to understand that this is maybe an alternative that could be a part of their agenda. But those, to date, we've sort of went through all the local groups that convene to do good in the city.
Okay, great. And we just need, it sounds like this is an opportunity for companies to perhaps meet some of their strategic objectives around equity.
Right.
And might not be their whole effort, but since you all are doing the heavy lifting, it sounds like, and the curriculum is developed and students are in it. Coming to the table is not the lift that you've already made. Right.
And I mean, it's there's an obvious thing here that, we chose City Colleges. We're doing this initiative in 11 markets across the country, but there are community colleges, right? Many more than 11 across the country. One of the reasons that City Colleges was chosen was its diversity, that this is a real answer for what a lot of companies are stating that they're trying to achieve.
Great.
I'll just say, Ann, I think one of the challenges is just starting, okay? Starting. I mean, and so you could start wherever your comfort level is, but we need to get in a position of giving these students and these programs that we're developing a chance to operationalize the value that we're building. And I think what we've learned over time in the partnerships that we've had is, if you start and take our students that are coming through these programs, you are going to be a satisfied customer. You're going to want to do more of this, okay? And so maybe you don't need a grand plan with your HR team. Maybe you just need to start, right? Pick the few occupations in your company, see where they align with the programs we have developed, take a few of those students that are coming out of our cybersecurity or our software development programs or our partnership with, Catalyte or soon to be, digital marketing work.
Great. Okay, so let's get to some questions. We have a question about whether any numbers can be shared about how many job seekers have been affected or placed into jobs, or is it too early in the program to be able to share numbers?
I would say it's too early.
The programs are, we are building this plane and flying it. The programs, as Juan mentioned, the first students are coming through now, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So obviously City Colleges has, many different programs. This is specific to Harold Washington. The 18 months that we've been referencing has to do with including the sort of planning time and developing the programming time. But really the students getting in the courses themselves has just kicked off right now. We did want to be clear. We did want to have the employers lined up with commitments at the front end. We recognize that that has not been able to happen. So we are launching these programs, and we're believing that the quality of what we've put together is going to lead to company engagements that will lead these students to have those livable wage jobs upon completion.
And are you feeling positive, Juan, about the level of interest from students who know about the programs?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Great.
been able to fill the slots that we've had. In fact, for some of these, we do have, waiting lists beyond what we're able to do to have a high quality program.
Great. Great. Any observations? Here's another question from the chat. Any observations that are unique or challenging to Chicago as you roll this program out in 11 different markets?
Yeah, I'm wondering how much I should say here. There are a couple other markets where just the idea companies signed up.
Wow.
So, one other city I'm thinking of specifically, they had each company, it was to the point where the college said, let's wait to make sure we can get the pipeline appropriately set. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how it all comes together in Chicago. Again, I kind of go back to, I feel like Chicago is set up of great companies doing great things, but sort of all on their own agendas. And getting some of the agendas to align has been probably our most difficult thing, where in other cities it's been a little bit more focused on similar agendas from the corporates.
Okay.
And I might just add in, and for us too, and this is just our reality, for us to effectively work in this space, we have to work with, this is not a bad thing, but it's a reality. P33, DPI, skills. There's a plethora of institutions that need to come together for us to, I think, be able to effectively do the work, right? And I think we've got to figure that out in our city if we're really going to get to the racial equity that we want.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question here about, before we get to that, because we are going to get a 2-minute warning, and then when that's over, we're just going to get cut. So we don't have any leeway. So I want to make sure before we end that everybody knows that when you get your follow-up email from this session with the post-event survey, which we really, really want you to fill out, there will be a list of contacts, and both Kara and Juan have graciously given us contacts. You can get in touch with Kara directly and the key member of Juan's team who is working on this stuff. So you will have contacts to continue the conversation. So I just want to make sure people know that. And then we'll get to, we'll keep going on the questions and we'll get a 2-minute warning. Okay. So Juan, could you say something about, has the lack of prior relevant experience been a sticking point for companies interested in hiring students? And so are you building workplace learning into the student experience?
Yeah.
What's the duration?
Without question, work-based learning has been a critical component of our, programming in the past. With this programming, what we're trying to produce is a ready student that can step into a full-time job that pays a living wage. And we're challenging ourselves to, produce the kind of curriculum and experiences, but specific, and I know Carlton's here with, Catalyte, with the Catalyte program, there's a built-in, work-based learning component that is, sort of like a, well, Carlton, why don't you talk about how you guys, do that within the structure of Catalyte's program?
Sure thing. Yeah, so the work-based learning component that Juan is, eloquently hitting on is, one, giving them, even through the training experience, giving them a very practical application-based approach. So being able to do real projects and really add to their portfolio, even before starting, their official job after completion of training. Then once they get placed on the job, now we've put together an experience where they can not only develop more work experience directly, but then also, get on a development plan that is going to be tailored to putting them in a position to excel
Carlton.
in that specific role.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second to thank Kara
Sure.
and Juan and you and everybody who's participated. We are about to get cut off, I think in a few seconds. I really appreciate your fleshing